Welcome to episode 53 of Birth Words. In today's episode, we'll be talking about being intentional with our words.
Welcome to Birth Words. Words are powerful. What are you doing with yours? In this podcast, birth doula and applied linguistics scholar Sara invites you to be intentional, reflective, and empowering with your language as we come together to honor those who give birth. The work of Birth Words is to elevate the language surrounding pregnancy, birth, and the postpartum period. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as medical advice.
Welcome to today's episode about being intentional with our words. This episode is part 2 in a little mini-series about being reflective, intentional, and empowering with our words. These are my 3 aims with Birth Words that as you listen to these podcasts, take the online courses, follow me on social media, that those are my invitations to you, whether you're a birth giver or a birth worker, that you are more reflective, intentional, and empowering with your words. So 2 weeks ago in episode 51, I talked about being reflective with our speech, about recognizing the societal and cultural influences that make an impact on the things that we say, and also the way that our words become those social and cultural influences. So being reflective about what those influences are so that we can move forward to the next step, which we're talking about today, being intentional. So when we speak, we change ourselves, we change others, and we change our environment. So let's make sure that our words are pointed toward positive change. And where I'm coming from with this claim that we change ourselves, others, and our environment when we speak comes from a linguistic theory called speech act theory. Back in the 60s, J.L. Austin talked about how speech is performative, that when we speak, there are certain types of utterances, things that people say that truly are inarguably performative. They enact a change in the state of being. This is like a marriage vow or a marriage pronouncement by the officiator at a marriage ceremony. The simple words spoken there effect a change in the relationship of the people being married. A christening of a boat is a verbal act. But Austin said, okay, so we recognize in our society that speech has this performative aspect, that there are things that are done simply by saying that they're done. But he said, but what about things that aren't as explicit in their performative nature? What about the other things that we say on a regular basis? How do they enact change in the environment? And he argued that in some sense, everything that we say and do with our words makes change. It is a speech act. It does something. So to explain his theory, he talked about the locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary forces of utterances. So he says, whenever I say something, that utterance, the thing that I say, has a locutionary force. That means the form of it, what you're saying in a grammatical sense, whether you're making a statement, asking a question, etc. The illocutionary force is this utterance's intent. What are you doing or attempting to do with that utterance? So the example I always give is if I say, wow, the grass is getting long, the locutionary force of that statement is an observation. It's just a statement, an observation. Wow, the grass is getting long. But the illocutionary force, what I'm trying to do with that is probably to get my listener to be interested in mowing the lawn, right? It's really a request in a veiled form, an indirect manner. The illocutionary force then is a request. And then the perlocutionary force is what we're really going to be focusing on today, because the perlocutionary force is the effect of the utterance. So does the person that you said, wow, the grass is getting long to, get up and go mow the lawn, well, that's the perlocutionary force. Or if they say, yep, sure is the perlocutionary force, the effect is they agreed, and maybe the illocutionary intent was missed. So as you are being intentional with your speech, these three forces of what you're saying are something to keep in mind. What is the form of what I'm saying? That may influence the way that it comes across to whoever you're speaking with. What is the intent of what I'm saying? And again, am I being explicit or implicit with it? And what effect does that have for the person I'm listening, conversing with? And thirdly, the perlocutionary force, the effect. We've been leading to this with each of these questions, but what effect will my utterance have when I speak this way? So as an individual, as you are preparing for birth, let's think about intentional words that you can use to prepare for a positive birth experience. So let's think about, we've talked in episode 15 and since then about affirmations that you can use, where you really align those locutionary, illocutionary, and perlocutionary forces to affirm truth to yourself, to give yourself strength in the birthing space. I think that in other much less obvious ways, we can be intentional with the way that we speak about pregnancy and birth. I in no way want to say that we should be ignoring the challenges and difficulties of pregnancy and birth. But if we focus solely on those things, if we talk about pregnancy and birth as if they are a medical condition that has been kind of thrust upon us, then we are not intentionally using our words to represent our experience, to create the change of recognizing ourselves as life-giving agents. Right? So let's choose words as you prepare to give birth throughout your pregnancy. Again, there are struggles, there are difficult things. We're not going to brush those under the rug. But let's focus on the power that is in you as you grow a human life, another human being. And as you bring that life into the world through the indescribably powerful act of giving birth. Let's represent it that way, because it is that way. And as we do so, let's be intentional about speaking that way around others so that they can have that perception of birth themselves. Let's purposefully align. We talked about our intent, our illocutionary force, that let's make statements about the beauty and power and wonder of our bodies and the work that we're doing and our agency in that work, our autonomy, our role as the birth giver, that we are powerful as we act in that role to bring life into the world. So as a birth worker, what can we do? Most of us are here because we want to work towards positive change. So what role do our words take in that work as we are working towards that positive change for birth givers for years to come? It's a very similar thing, right, to what we were talking about with those who themselves are preparing to give birth. But let's intentionally speak about birth with power. Let's invite the effect of our words to be empowering. And in 2 more episodes, we'll talk about empowering words and we'll focus on that. Let's be mindful of common words or phrases that rob birth givers of their intrinsic power. We've talked about some of those throughout a variety of episodes. Off the top of my head, the episode with Rebecca Decker, there was an episode called Decomposition, where I just took apart a few common words and looked at where the element of power was missing from them. Let's be mindful of not using the words like, oh, your doctor delivered you, right? Because that puts the power out of the hands of the birth giver. Let's be intentional in the way that we support our clients according to their preferences, which is really important and difficult to recognize that our preferences and perspectives may not exactly align with our clients, but we can intentionally empower. Again, we're moving on to that third aspect of empowering speech. We can intentionally empower our clients as we listen to where they're coming from and reflect our confidence in their role. So we go into depth in this in the in-depth workshop that I have another live one coming up September 26th. For those of you who are birth workers listening in Utah, it will be held in Lehi all day on Saturday, September 26th. Registration is open. Early bird price is there, birthwords.com/classes. Or for those of you farther away, coming up in August, there will be an online version of that course where we'll really talk through how can we recognize where our clients are coming from, align our speech to match their preferences and to lift them and recognize their intrinsic power again. So I invite you to go head over to birthwords.com/classes, and both of those are available to pre-register for now at this point. So another invitation I have for you listening, whether you're a birth worker or a birth giver, is to be intentional about the words that you put out there that may influence the expectations and the perceptions about pregnancy and birth that others have. Ask yourself, when you speak about pregnancy and birth, if a friend or family member was preparing to give birth and primarily relied on what they'd heard you say about it, what kind of experience would they expect? Let's be intentional to create positive change and to invite all giving birth to have an empowered experience as they do the incredible work of bringing life into the world. I'm excited to talk to you more about being empowering with our speech in 2 weeks. Next week, make sure to tune in for another special interview episode, and I will see you then.
If you're interested in sharing your ideas or experiences on the podcast, go to birthwords.com. If you're liking what you hear, please leave a review on your podcast app. For more resources about language for a better birth, subscribe to the monthly newsletter at birthwords.com and follow Birthwords on Instagram and Facebook.